Right, so Rupert Murdoch's scumrag did quite the number on BBC presenter Huw Edwards, didn't they? Hospitalising him over accusations of criminal behaviour, paying for explicit images despite said alleged criminality, getting dropped by South Wales Police and the Met when there was no crime committed, as it turns out. You can have an opinion on what you think of Edwards' conduct, but ultimately it's his business in this case and not ours. What he gets up to behind closed doors is nothing to do with us. Yet weirdly enough, another news presenter, and I use news in a very loose sense in this case, is a certain Dan Wootton, who has mysteriously vanished off the GB News set recently. Apparently, he was taking some time out to spend with family back in New Zealand. Well, a Byline Times article, the culmination of a 3-year investigation by them into Wootton, might shed a little bit more light on this. And Murdoch's silence in this particular instance on this particular presenter of what his rag did regarding the BBC is exposed to hypocrisy there and all the more here. It's also pretty damaging for GB News itself, having done nothing thus far to deal with Wootton following these accusations, which have been circulating as a bit of a rumour on social media for days, it has to be said. Yet we're perfectly happy to lay into the Huw Edwards story as a BBC nuclear bomb. It seems Wootton has, between 2008 and 2018, the time frame of the Byline investigation, been using the identity of a fake showbiz agent, calling himself Martin Branning, offering large sums of money, £30,000 is the figure Byline quote. So Huw Edwards' level of money here to target men, to trick and bribe them into sending and revealing and compromising sexual material. A cash for sexual images scandal. Again, it does all sound very familiar, doesn't it? Wootton is alleged to have been catfishing people, and again making it seem very strange that Murdoch hasn't done something about Wootton amongst his alleged victims. After all, are a senior figure at Murdoch's News UK, along with at least 6 staff working for the Scum newspaper. He'd also targeted members of the public through gay apps like Grindr and through Facebook. So allegations aside for a moment, why has Murdoch left him alone? He, like Huw Edwards, surely works for a rival channel here. Murdoch hates the BBC, but surely GB News is a rival to his Talk TV station too. Why not treat them the same way? GB News are a lot smaller, surely an easier target to take out, you might think, and the allegations made against Wootton seem substantially stronger, and there's a lot more of them than there was with the Huw Edwards case. Byline haven't covered everything they've got, apparently, but they have apparently sent a 28-page dossier to the Met Police regarding Wootton, whose Martin Branning persona is apparently already known to them. Well, Wootton and Murdoch have history, so maybe that might shed some light on this. Wootton was at the News of the World before it went down over the phone hacking scandal, so Wootton, once upon a time, worked for Murdoch himself, and he continued working for him after that, later on going on to work for the Scum. So they do have long-standing history together, and that has perhaps earned him some level of immunity, at least from Murdoch's outlets, which would mean Wootton is more valued still than current staff who are now alleged victims of Wootton. Seems odd. But if you read the Byline article and see the ways Wootton has apparently obtained materials or attempted to, seems more like Wootton might now know where a few bodies are buried, so to speak. Given how hard GB News went after Huw Edwards, though, it's all very hypocritical to ignore one of their own, though, isn't it? Of course, that said, the BBC went to town on Edwards themselves for days, ignoring other stories, leading many, including myself, to surmise it to be a cover story to bury worse news, Murdoch dictating the national conversation again. But weirdly, the BBC isn't covering this Wootton story at all. I can only conclude it's because of the snobbery they have regarding smaller independent news outlets that they don't want to give credence or credit to. It's a Byline's exclusive after all, but people are still pointing it out. Little wonder so many go to social media to keep informed. The BBC only tells you what they want you to hear, and in that regard they have more in common with Rupert Murdoch than first thought, perhaps. If all of these allegations Byline have reported on do get confirmed, it should be the end of Wootton, really, but also the end of those protecting him. The reputation of GB News will be even muddier than it already is. Murdoch will be dragged too, and a guy like Wootton, you really do wonder just how many more people in the industry could be feeling very nervous regarding what he may have on them. Maybe that's another reason the BBC are avoiding the story. Has he got some pictures of men working there? How deep does the rabbit hole go? It also makes the Scum look like a bunch of wallies, not only for running so hard on the Huw Edwards story, but that so many of their own staff were compromised here and they still ignored the story. This is going to run further. I'm thinking at this point, are any politicians mixed up in this perhaps? Where will it go from here? Ultimately, the mainstream media be made to look for fools, showing up for their selective reporting. Again, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. Support your independent media. Byline have done a brilliant job on this. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. New content posted daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation for you where media manipulation following the Confetti-gate fallout of George Osborne's wedding covered up the real story behind all of that, and I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.